Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Science Without Consensus. I am your host, Diamond, from the Oppenheimer Ranch Project. And joining us today is my lovely co-host and partner, Leah Shaper.
Hello.
Welcome to
Good
the program.
to be here.
Oh.
Grateful to be alive.
We've got a great show for you today. We're going to be talking about a controversial topic, Lovelock Cave and giants that have been unearthed there. I'm sure you've all heard of the rumor or the myth or whatever you want to call it. What we'll do is we'll break down the science of the entire situation. I'll go over the history of Lovelock Cave, some of the digs, what they found. They found lots of really cool artifacts in there, including a whole bunch of duck decoys, which I find fascinating. And then if when we have time or when we get there, we'll dive in a little bit about giants and mythology, because there is myths about giants everywhere in the entire planet. So we'll show you that data, and then maybe we'll pontificate about it. Anything you want to say before we dive in?
Nope.
All right. I'm going to push a button.
Do it.
So everyone has probably seen this picture. It probably isn't real. So let's talk about the facts. But before we do that, I will do a little summary here in the beginning. Archaeologists have long been baffled about claims that a long-lost group of giant humans who stood up to 10 feet tall once lived in the southwestern U.S. Supersized human skulls, 15-inch sandals, and massive handprints have been uncovered in excavations inside a cave in Lovelock, Nevada, over the last century, which have continued to spark the curiosity of scientists and the public. The claims about these giants of Lovelock originated from Native Americans who told stories about a brutal tribe of pale-skinned, red-haired invaders who waged war on the local group before finally being trapped in a cave and exterminated. According to archaeologists, the story is likely an exaggeration of the facts or even an outright fabrication. But some of the pieces of evidence continue to encourage believers. Now, some of what I read is true and some of it is not true. And we'll get into the mythology. Did you get into the mythology and what I think her name is Mary Winnemucca said?
Yeah, a bit.
Okay, we'll get to that in a little bit, guys. So let's talk about Lovelock Cave and the history of it. It's a North American archaeological site previously known as Sunset Guano Cave, Horseshoe Cave, and Loud Site 18. The cave is 150 feet long, 35 feet wide. It's one of the most important classic sites of the Great Basin region because the conditions of the cave are conducive to the preservation of organic and inorganic material. The cave was placed on the National Register of Historic Places May 24th, 1984, and it was the first major cave in the Great Basin to be excavated. And the Lovelock Cave people are part of the University of California Archaeological Community's Lovelock Cave Station, whatever that means. Okay, so the earliest discovery of artifacts in 1911, two miners, David Pugh and James Hart, were hired to mine for bat guano from the cave to be used as fertilizer. They removed a layer of guano estimated to be 3 to 6 feet deep, weighing 250 tons. That's a lot of poop.
Mm-hmm.
Heiser and Knapton's review of the excavation site, the guano, was dug up from the upper cave deposits, screened on the hillside outside the cave, and shipped to a fertilizer company in San Francisco. Miners had dumped the top layers of Lovelock onto the heap outside of the cave, and the miners were aware of the artifacts, but only the most interesting specimens were saved. The first exploration was unsystematic, and the loss of material and damage to the site strata was considerable, according to blah, blah, blah. Now, these are some of the artifacts that were found during some of the archaeological digs. Can you see that? Oh, yes, you can.
I can see it. Sorry. I have to make some adjustments here.
Pretty fascinating stuff. We've got like shells for jewelry, stone sinkers, because they had here, I'll show you the original picture, which I just erased.
Are these going to be lures? Oh,
This
these are
is the
the duck decoys. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is the original guy. The original excavation, probably like the 1950s, and look at how many decoys are there.
Yeah.
So they use these stone sinkers to hold the ducks in place so they don't float away.
Right.
Look, what else is in this picture? We've got an ancient stone smoking pipe, an effigy of a rat, and at the bottom, that big black thing is supposedly an effigy of a crayfish.
Mm.
And here we can see obsidian arrow points, woven basket fragments, and an antique duck call, that green object. I wonder what that's made of.
Look at the effigy of rat.
Yeah.
How do you get rat out of that?
I don't know.
That's a stretch, in my opinion. That the crayfish too, maybe, but
so some interesting stuff in this cave.
yeah.
And you can see a lot of it at the National Museum of the American Indian in New York. Mm-hmm. Were you ever there?
Not that I recall, but I think, well, anyway, never mind. Yeah, just go ahead.
Okay, so there were lots of excavations in the cave. Some of the earlier excavations weren't really done archaeologically, and a lot of the data was lost. But 12 years after they screwed up the data, Loud returned to Lovelock Cave with M.R. Harrington in the summer of 1924. The Museum of the American Indian, the Hayi Foundation, who, assisted by local Paiute Indians, attempted to recover any materials left from previous investigations. They found leftover fragments that had been previously ignored by collectors in the east and the center of the cave. The team also dug to the base of the deposit at the west end, resulting in the discovery of the famous duck decoy cache, which we just showed you. So the duck decoys were dated, and they were dated to 130 BC to around 300 BC.
The duck decoys are particularly interesting because they kind of suggest that, both Native Americans and Europeans had similar ideas about how to hunt ducks. But then it does sort of beg the question too, did they have an interaction at some point that helped spread that idea? I don't know when Europeans first started using duck decoys, so I have no idea if that even makes sense.
Man, we're talking these are 2,000-year-old duck decoys.
Right. Right. Like maybe, because, and we'll get into this too, because it may relate to the giant myths, but it seems we sort of know already, right, that there were some Europeans that entered North America well before Columbus, like the Vikings, for example. Maybe the duck decoy idea spread long before.
Yeah.
Europeans had the idea, who knows? Or, maybe it's just an intuitive concept that would come with attempts to hunt ducks, right? And in this area, waterfowl clearly were a huge part of the diet of these people. So, it's certainly possible that two groups of human beings came up with the same idea.
Well, and the Indians, the Native Americans, they gained most of their knowledge through observation of nature. Like that's how they found out about certain roots. They would watch animals that were sick, gather these roots and eat them. So clearly they knew that in ponds where there were ducks already sitting there, other ducks tended to land in those ponds. So all you had to do is find a body of water. Even if there weren't ducks, you put out your decoys and the ducks fly in and you shoot them.
Right. Yeah. It's not like a particularly advanced concept if you just sit there and observe nature. So it's certainly possible that these two groups of people came up with the same idea because it makes sense.
And they didn't have shotguns. So I think it'd be very hard to hit ducks with a bow and arrow. So they must have been like using nets or something.
I was reading somewhere that what was the first technique? There was some kind of a more hands-off technique like shooting them, but then also I guess some people got really good at hunting ducks, such that they would camouflage themselves and actually like physically grab them by hiding in the reeds and surprising them. It's not out of the realm of possibility. I mean, I could see even, there's this mama turkey with two babies growing up that like to visit the house, and I could see how if you got good and practiced at camouflaging yourself and being really quiet, you could totally grab them.
Yeah. Yeah. Where were we? They also found other artifacts here. We showed you some of them. Interesting artifact was a hand-woven textile sling collected by Loud in 1912, but it was not reported or studied extensively until years later. They find these amazing things, and then they just lock them in a cabinet somewhere.
I know. Well, between that and that the earlier archaeology of this cave was not, was so sloppy, or not, I don't even know if you could call it archaeology. It's really a shame because you really potentially destroy a lot of the evidence doing this, or your ability to date some things.
Yeah, so the sling is interesting. It is recognized as one of the earliest slings known in North America. The Indians of the Northern Paiute, or the Paviostos, were occupants of that area during historic times, and they recognized the sling as a toy or used for hunting and war. So these slings may have been used to sling rocks at the ducks.
Oh, yeah.
It's a mechanism used for hunting birds specifically.
Okay, makes sense.
So that's interesting. Now let's talk about the giants. Well, let's just talk about burials, shall we? The burials from Lovelock Cave do not appear to be similar to earlier burials from Spirit Cave or the later burials in Stillwater Marsh. So these are nearby other areas where there are Native American burials. The 8 burials from Lovelock were buried at various times between 2500 BC and 1100 AD. And we know 1100 AD to be the peak of the Puebloans out here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Lovelock Cave was being used all the way to that time period. And then shortly after that, the populations of Native Americans by 1350 in the Southwest drop off a cliff. Now, there are similar approximate contemporaneous Elephant Mountain Cave bundle burials from the Black Rock Desert north of Lovelock. But this site was extensively looted, and to study it is difficult. And a pair of sandals from the cave have been radiocarbon date to 10,000 years old, making them the oldest footwear ever found in Nevada and among the oldest ever in the world.
Mm.
Now, have you seen, where are they? So this cave had perfect preservation. So there mustn't have been any moisture, or it was high above the groundwater and no weather was able to get in here. And what you're looking at is Bigfoot of the Great Basin. So on the left is a piece of a sandal, and you can see here other sandals.
Mm-hmm.
These other sandals are normal foot size, but
Mm-hmm.
the piece they found in Lovelock would be, I don't know what the size is, a size 23 foot.
I think it was 29, supposed to be 15 inches long, but I didn't really realize until seeing this that we only have a piece of that supposedly huge sandal. So that makes me very skeptical.
Yeah. And could it have been something else other than a sandal?
Well, right. How do you extrapolate that this is look at that. How do you extrapolate that that's a large sandal?
Maybe it's the only thing that these types of textiles were used for, just sandals, not for baskets.
No, that's fine. But still, even if
weaving.
it's a sandal, how do you extrapolate that it's 15 inches long from that piece?
Well,
Like, especially if you don't know exactly how it was constructed, or the differences in, let's say, how the front part of the sandal was constructed relative to the center point. That's a big leap.
Yeah, I think it is slightly believable.
Slightly, yeah, but that leaves me with a lot of doubt.
What's interesting is they found a 10,000-year-old sandal to the north, and they found these sandals, which are the oldest they can be is 2500 BC. So the natives in this area were wearing the same footwear for thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah.
It didn't change.
Yeah, that kind of makes some sense to me. But this
Um,
picture in this exhibit of the supposed red-haired giant chasing people is kind of funny and a bit of a mockery.
yeah, so the whole giant thing, we'll get to that in a little
Yeah.
bit, is made up or a mistranslation, or someone added it for flavor at some point.
Possibly, yeah.
Because the original story was that these were barbarians. That was the word used by the natives.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and then there's we'll get to this, but there's potentially some questions about that too.
So this story and the burials, the bodies that were found at Lovelock Cave, the skeletons were all normal sized humans, maybe approaching 6 feet at the biggest. And so this sandal is kind of an enigma, and is where the whole idea of giants come from, not from the skeletons.
Right.
And so that means that this is a hoax. The picture on the left.
Yeah, one thing I want to point out about this picture that strikes me as being very funny is, okay, you can see the ribs of this supposed giant, and you can see like the crotch. Like, look at the length in there. Like,
Yeah.
and if you look at the rib cage by itself and look at the men next to it and the hands, you can see that the rib cage and the hands really are not very different in size at all. So to me, this almost looks like
They stretched a body 4
they
feet.
stretched it out, or like or maybe like added some material in
Yeah,
the middle. I mean, that's
the hips are right up here at the end of the ribs.
yeah.
So they
It's
stretched it out 3 feet. Plus, the feet are a foot higher than the men are standing
yeah, that too.
to make
Yeah,
it look even taller.
yeah. So like it just now not that's okay. Let's say there was really a giant race of hominids. It's not to say that anatomically they couldn't have had this insanely long torso, but it looks really fishy to me when I look at this photograph. And yeah, I don't
Fishy
know.
indeed.
Yeah, and if you're looking for some kind of attention or accolade or something, this is probably a very good way to get attention, to manipulate a body like this, which in and of itself is pretty disgusting. But
So let's talk about the Siteka.
yeah,
And these are the barbarians. According to reports of the Northern Paiutes oral history, the Siteka or Saduka or Sai, sometimes erroneously referred to as Sedukara, after a term said to be used by the Sitika to refer to another group. This were a legendary tribe to whom the Northern Paiutes fought a war with over a long period of time, and eventually wiped out or drove them away from the area, with the final battle having been taken place at Lovelock Cave. They were said to have red hair and sometimes described as being cannibals. In some later versions, the legends, they were giants. And in 1911, a large amount of artifacts and mummified human remains were discovered under 3 to 6 feet of guano at Lovelock Cave. So that is the legend of this Sitika. Any comments?
Well, okay, there's a long, like almost hour and a half video on YouTube by, what is it? I keep forgetting the name of it. Lore Lodge, the Lore Lodge, Lore Lodge. And he goes into some extensive detail about the translation, let's say, of the Paiute words, right? So whether or not the correct translation is barbarian or cannibal or things like that, because but apparently there's some ambiguity in terms of what those words really refer to. And some in some cases, those words may actually refer to like another known tribe or group of Paiutes. I recommend watching it because it gives a good sense of all of the things that are very unclear in this situation. And then, you also have this issue of, there's this constant referral to red hair. And maybe we should consider that, really heavily consider that, simply because it's mentioned again and again and again. But as has been pointed out by many people, in the right conditions, any dark hair will turn red via mummification, right? So,
Yes, but we've got the red-haired mummies in Peru.
right.
And in this case, we have multiple lines of evidence from oral tradition that this tribe of barbarians were red-haired.
Right. And
Yeah.
don't we have red-haired mummies from Egypt as well?
Yes, they're all over.
Right. And I find it hard to dismiss that simply because of how many times it's mentioned in the mythology,
Yep.
but that's a bit different than, let's say, a word for like giant, right? Because it could very well be that we're talking about a group of people that were, generally speaking, were larger than, let's say, the Paiutes, which is totally feasible. But they don't necessarily have to be, 7 or 8 feet tall. They could be 6 foot something, or even under 6 foot, and maybe by comparison, these people seem a lot larger than the Paiutes.
Right.
So
And
the question there is that an exaggeration? You know?
according to oral tradition, the Sitika also were very hairy on their body.
Yeah.
And Native American cultures tend to have very little hair.
Yeah.
So this could have been like a breakaway tribe of Denisovan that had been living here amongst other groups.
Sure.
The
I mean,
Denisovans have huge teeth, the thickness of their skulls is massive. So they were like, Viking type Norse. They're big, big dudes
well,
and
and
women.
I think, considering that these people could have been Norse people, I think is worth a consideration as well.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
because they would have been, generally speaking, light-haired, lighter skinned, larger, probably. So, I think all of those things are worth considering. I mean, it seems to me, unfortunately, like we're never really going to know for sure, partially because so much of the evidence, I think, has been contaminated by the early excavations.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it makes it very difficult to untangle all of this.
So let's talk about Sarah Winnemucca and her account. Okay. Sarah Winnemucca is the daughter of Paiute chief Winnemucca, which there's a pretty big city in Nevada called Winnemucca is named after.
Mhm.
He wrote in 1883 about a small tribe of barbarians who ate her people in her book, Life Among the Paiutes, The Wrongs and Claims. She wrote that after my people had killed them all, the people round us called us Seydou Kara. It means conqueror. It also means enemy. My people say that the tribe we exterminated had reddish hair. I have some of their hair. So she actually had a lock of the hair,
Interesting.
which has been handed down from father to son. I have a dress which has been in our family a great many years, trimmed with the reddish hair. I'm going to wear it sometime when I lecture. It's called a mourning dress, and no one has such a dress but my family. She also reported hearing old women say that white people ate people, quoting one as saying, yes, they do eat people because they ate each other up in the mountains last winter. So these people were white and red-haired, is what I'm getting there. So they might have been Europeans, Vikings. No comments?
Well, I mean, I don't certainly, obviously there are human cannibals on Earth. I mean, there are other tribes, like in the Amazon, that are cannibalistic. So it's certainly not out of the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
I don't think it really matters what race you are. It's still possible. So who knows?
Well, and there's also there are tribes right now on Earth that are cannibals.
Right. That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah.
It does. It certainly does happen. And I'm sorry, I can't remember the details of this, but again, this is in the video from Lore Lodge.
Yeah.
And that video was called "Did the Giants of Lovelock Cave Really Exist?" And this is obviously 19th century, but there is a suggestion that the Paiute might have had some might have crossed paths with the Donner Party. I don't remember the details, but that's worth considering as well. Maybe that's the reference of the people eating each other in the mountains. I don't know.
Oh, oh, yeah.
So,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
and
The
there is a
white
very
people
close. I
do
don't
eat
remember.
each other. It
Yeah,
just
I don't.
happened.
Yeah, and I don't remember because I don't remember the details. I was a little distracted watching this video, but there is a very close date correspondence
Oh,
there.
yeah.
So,
It was definitely them finding the Donner Party.
right.
Be
But, you know,
honest.
what if there was a tribe of, let's say former Vikings that came to North America much earlier on, became sort of their own little group
Yeah.
and were cannibalistic. I mean, that's certainly possible.
Well, also in antiquity, let's go back 200,000 years. In general, we don't know about almost any of the hominid species that have been on Earth
Mhm,
because we don't have any. It's just hard to come by fossils.
mhm,
And Michael Button just put out a piece on why giants are real. And he simply goes through all the archaeology. We recently found Homo floresiensis in Indonesia. These are 3-foot humans,
mhm.
and they were alive as early as 40 or 50,000 years ago.
Have I been
And
saying it wrong this whole time? You said Floresiensis, and
yeah,
I've been
it's
saying
floresiensis.
Floriensis.
It's floresiensis. Floresiensis.
Okay, gonna have to try to
It's a tongue
remember that. I have
twister.
to look at the spelling better.
Floresiensis.
Okay.
Um, and that happens to do with island dwarfism, which we know certain mammals become dwarfed on certain islands in certain conditions. This is just
Mhm,
a form of something that happens. There is also island gigantism,
mhm.
which gives you things like the Komodo dragon and giant 6-foot man-eating birds.
Yeah.
So there must have been a human that was giant from an island due
Yeah,
to
well, and
gigantism.
the other thing that's worth pointing out there is this concept we've been talking about a lot recently that, it's perhaps when we become geographically isolated that these significant morphological differences occur because you now have a smaller gene pool and then you now also have a set of conditions that are very specific for a group of people. So it makes sense that something like dwarfism or gigantism would evolve on an island,
Yep.
based on the conditions, based sort of as a biological necessity, perhaps,
And we do
especially in
have
the case of dwarfism.
caches of gigantic tools that are unexplainable, like 18-pound hand axes that no normal human would be using.
Right.
So hard to explain that. So I
Yeah.
think, well, go ahead.
No, nothing. I'm just agreeing with you.
Yeah, there's definitely been giants in on Earth in antiquity, but we're the SETI, what are they called?
CTK.
We're the CTK giants. No, I don't think so. I think the evidence leads towards cannibalistic barbarians.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's sort of my gut feeling on it.
Yeah.
Um,
But that
and
doesn't mean that there aren't myths and folklore about giants that may be real and not just misinterpreted or made up.
right. I mean, the part that we're really lacking here is, the kind of irrefutable evidence. Like, let's say a skeleton of a very large human being that clearly has not been adulterated in any fashion or played with or whatever, right? Like we're kind of seems like we're kind of missing that. I mean, I keep hearing about people talking about evidence of giant skeletons, and I'll admit that I haven't really looked very hard, but I don't. What does that mean? Like, at what point does it uh, become a giant? Is that when you're over 7 feet tall? I don't know. Because again, when we talk about giants, we might just be talking about a group of people that are somewhat larger than the the people who are talking about them.
Right. And currently on Earth, we do have gigantism. And the largest
Yeah.
person I think is over 9 feet tall.
Right.
Right.
But and generally speaking, people with gigantism have health problems, right? This is
Yeah.
not the greatest adaptation typically for a human being. So And I've said the same thing about dwarfism. Like, I'm not going to say it right. Homo flor- floresiensis,
Floresiensis. Yeah.
something like that. It could be that dwarfism is a genetic function of that hominid. I don't know. Maybe that hominid wasn't really that different than the other hominids at the time, but was small due to geographical isolation. Maybe it's just a morphological difference and not really a genetic one. I don't know.
Well, let's
But
go. Let's talk about a few of the giant myths. There are too
mm,
many to name and too many to go through all here. We would be here for weeks
mhm,
because there are dozens alone in the Abrahamic religions and religions of the ancient Near East.
mhm.
It occurs in American folklore, Armenian, Australian, Celtic mythology, Gaelic mythology, Chinese, Dutch folklore, English folklore. Look at all this. Fenno-Scandinavian folklore, Norse mythology. Look at all the Norse mythological stories of giants.
That's interesting.
Over 100. Sami folklore, French folklore, German, Greek, and Roman mythology. Look at this.
Yeah.
Iberian mythology, Basque, Cantabrian, whatever that is, Indian religions, Hindu mythology, Jainism, Japanese folklore, Malaysian folklore, North American folklore. Look at all these from Native Americans.
Mhm. Yeah.
Oceania. Go ahead.
Well, no, it's just the sheer number of mythologies about this. You have to make a decision. I mean, do you
I'm
think that
still going.
I know, it's endless. So basically, the entire globe has mythologies about giants. So you have to ask yourself, is this solely a function of human imagination? Or is there a reality behind this? I'm inclined to believe that there is some kind of reality behind it. And we've said this before, but if there's Homo floresiensis, why can't there be, a giant hominid that we just haven't really just, fully discovered yet? Or, maybe the bones are hiding in the Smithsonian somewhere, right?
Yeah, well,
Because it,
according to Aztec mythology, it features the Quinametsin. It's a race of giant men created in one of the previous solar eras, and they are credited with the construction of Teotihuacan.
hmm.
So we've got a race of giants, according to the Aztecs, that helped them build those giant pyramids.
Well, which is funny, right? Because when we're so mystified by, let's say, the structure of places like
Sacsayhuaman.
Sacsayhuaman, right? And there's some very interesting theories about how, or in the oh gosh, words are escaping me today. What's the European um, giant construction? Uh, oh gosh, that begins with a B.
Where? What?
In Europe, there's, I mean, we have this kind of construction all over the world of these giant blocks, and we can't understand how people put them together, right? And
Oh, Baalbek.
Baalbek, thank you.
That's in
Um,
Turkey.
Turkey, thank you. So, like, I mean, there's lots of interesting ideas about how some of these places might have been constructed, both because of the sheer size of the building blocks and because of the incredible precision. But regardless of how we might conceive of how these things were put together, there's still the issue of dealing with things that are immensely heavy, and obviously being a much larger hominid would make that easier to deal with. So
Yeah.
just
Here's the Bulgarian myth. In Bulgaria, giants are called Ispolini, and they inhabited the earth before modern humans. They lived in the mountains, fed on raw meat, and often fought against dragons. Isopolini were afraid of blackberries, which posed a danger of making the giants trip and die. So they offered sacrifices to the plant.
Oh, that's interesting. Like that kind of strikes me as like just like an allergy to blackberries. But to have like a whole mythology around it, it must have been very significant.
Especially to the giants of Bulgaria.
That's what I mean. I'm part
So
Bulgarian.
this is interesting. The Hindu have accounts stating that humans grew to the size of giants during the Satya Yuga.
Mm.
So the Yuga cycle controls human size.
Interesting.
And according to Jainism, it's similar. There is a time when giants walked on the earth. Jain cosmology divides the worldly cycle of time into two parts or half cycles, ascending purity and descending. So it's similar to the Yuga cycle. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's interesting, especially that the Norse have their own, significant number of myths about giants, simply because of what we were talking about earlier. Like, let's say the giants this what is it, Site Ka? Let's say
Yeah.
they were Norse people. Well, maybe these aren't the normal Norse people. Maybe these are the giant Norse people. If the Norse have their own myth about giants, then there are people even larger than them.
Yeah. So in folklore from all over Europe, giants were believed to have built the remains of previous civilizations. The Danish historian Saxo Grammaticus thought giants had a hand in the creation of megalithic monuments. Similarly, Old English poem The Seafarer speaks of the high stone walls that were the work of giants. Natural geologic features such as the massive basalt columns of Giant's Causeway on the coast of Ireland were attributed to construction by giants, but those are in fact geologic features. I can hear Gremlin.
Yeah, I know. I kind of want to look out the front and see if anybody's here. 1 second.
Yep. So in the Netherlands, giants are often associated with creating or forming the landscape. For instance, two giants are said to have dug a channel until they reached the village of Akram, where they had an argument and each went on his way, thus splitting the channel in two separate waterways. So giants are everywhere. Medieval, English folklore. Yeah, basically in everything. And even in all of our childhood books.
Yeah.
Jack and the Beanstalk, there was a giant.
Yeah. It makes it very hard to dismiss the potential reality of this, because we've already determined that there's no reason that this couldn't have been the case, that there were giants somewhere along the way. And maybe they were global, given all of the mythologies about it.
Yeah, we're just waiting to find a skull. We just found a mystery Greek hominin that dates to 286,000 years ago.
Yeah.
This is cool. I shared it last night. A mysterious skull fused to a cave wall. That's sticking out of the cave wall. See it?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Absolutely fascinating.
And also, what's coming out of his forehead? Did he get stabbed in the head?
Right. Well, and I wonder too about, with it sticking out of the cave wall, perhaps, especially at that angle, maybe is it possible that the cave floor deepened over time?
That's what is the burial level and the rest is erosion.
Right.
So they put the body below it where it would have been hovering off the ground here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty fascinating.
And this one also dates around that time. This is another hominid that doesn't fit Denisovan, Neanderthal, or Homo sapien, and it is dated to 277,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm. At least, isn't this at minimum? Is sort of what I was reading.
Yeah.
Because
Yep. So lots
and
of
this
weird.
is using uranium thorium dating. So for those of you that take issue with carbon dating, this is much more reliable.
Yep. And creepy.
Yeah. Yeah. What is going on with what's coming up? I mean, I suppose that could be a mineral formation, right?
Yeah. Stalactite or stalagmite, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a lot we don't know about our past, and maybe we're just waiting to find an archaeological site with a gigantic skull.
Yeah.
And I think it's only a matter of time, to be real.
I agree. And it really feels like, whenever we talk about human evolution and let's say, where Neanderthals, Denisovans fit in, all of that, we are barely scratching the surface is my feeling about it. I think there's so much that we're missing.
Now, what do you think about all the accounts, all the conspiracy theory channels, about all the articles in early newspapers that were probably just like tabloids, but they were about all the giants being unearthed out here in the West. And then somehow, miraculously, not a single bone is left because the Smithsonian took it all and put it in the basement.
Which is possible. I mean, with
All
the
of it?
Smithsonian, we kind of know that the Smithsonian has done things like that before.
Yeah, but all of it.
Yeah, wait, remind me of your personal story. I can't remember what it is. I forget the guy's name, the guy that you sent your Clovis point to at the Smithsonian.
Stanford.
Yeah.
Dennis Stanford.
Didn't he say something about the Smithsonian kind of hoarding some evidence in
Yeah,
regards
they
to
had
Clovis
evidence as
people?
early as the 1980s that there were artifacts older than Clovis in multiple caves in North America. And they had the evidence there at the Smithsonian, and no one was studying it or writing papers on it.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the problem, is there is that propensity for the dark closets of places like the Smithsonian and other scientific institutions to just have tucked these things away because perhaps it didn't fit the anthropological narrative of the time, or lack of funding or lack of time, or
Okay.
somebody just dismissed it because they just didn't think it was important or whatever. I mean, there's potentially a lot of interesting stuff like that we
We
just
got to
don't
get this
point.
out to all archaeology graduates and students. Go in the basement where the hominid fossils are and open all the drawers and see what you got.
Right.
I bet you
You know?
someone's got a big skull somewhere.
Right. Yeah, that's possible that we already have it, right? And again, like, especially if, let's say we're talking early 20th century, when you've got these guys, doing these very informal archaeological recoveries in Lovelock Cave, and then are subsequently, hitting the news with these kind of sensational stories, then that makes it even harder to, as a scientist, perhaps, to like really take it seriously and look at what may or may not be true. And so if it becomes inconvenient to the current narrative of anthropology, then the tendency is going to be to put it away in a drawer somewhere.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like I don't think there's ever been a time, and I was thinking about this last night because I said something to you yesterday about how unfortunate it is that we have um, big scientific issues that have become heavily politicized. Things like obviously climate change, COVID, all of that. But in reality, it's probably the case that science has been politicized on one level or another for a long, long time. I don't know if we can ever escape that, and maybe the evidence is there and it's just a casualty of that tendency.
Yeah. But when you see things like this,
You can't put this away in a drawer.
you start to wonder. Look at that block on the far left there.
I know, and the far right. I mean, like Baalbek in particular blows my mind because just the sheer size of those rocks. But these are obviously also enormous. And then, you have to ask about the incredible what's the word I'm looking for? I'm really struggling with words
Tolerance.
today. Yeah, I mean, just the tolerance of how all of these things fit together. I mean,
And what was this
we are not
for?
capable of I don't think we're capable of manufacturing things today with this degree of tolerance.
It would take eons to do all these. It would take
Yeah.
months per block to get them right.
Yeah.
And
Like,
yet, what is this for? Some giant fortress?
right.
For what purpose?
Right.
The cataclysm. They were preparing for it, and they
Well,
didn't.
and
It
these
didn't
are
work.
earthquake proof, these walls, right?
Yeah, they're
So,
earthquake proof too.
yeah. Which again has everything to do with the construction. It's the polygonal construction, but also that it's not in a grid, that where all the vertical lines line up together. It's all of that offsetting that creates the earthquake proof level, aspect of this. I
Right.
mean,
So if you have any question in your mind about lost ancient technology, you're looking at it right here.
right. Like, to me, this is the most obvious example of high technology a long time ago. One of the most interesting theories I think there is for Saxe-Wilman is like geopolymers. Is
Well,
seems like a
these
very
polygonal megalithic structures are all around the world. They find them in
well, right,
Japan. They're even on Easter Island,
right, and a lot of the
Malta.
others, a lot of the others do not scream geopolymers to me. And I can't remember the conclusion, but there was actually a very interesting study done on I'm pretty sure it was the rocks of Saxe-Wilman where they were analyzing them to see if they could have been a geopolymer, and I don't remember the conclusion, but it was pretty interesting. But then when we talk about things like Baalbek, those rocks appear to just be cut into those shapes.
Oh yeah, you can see them cut in the quarry and they haven't been removed.
Right. So, we still need an explanation for how hominids were moving stones of that kind of size.
Well, and if you just get a human that's, let's say, 15 foot tall, that's not going to help you move those stones.
Well, that's another really good
That
point.
doesn't make any sense either.
Right.
So clearly, the humans, pre-Diluvian, before the Younger Dryas, were highly advanced and build in extremely advanced ways because they had lived through all these cataclysms and passed it down through the ages on how to build these earthquake-proof structures.
Mhm.
Yeah, because
Well,
it's
and
safer way to live than to get
right,
crushed by your house.
right. And this is obviously there's some technologies here that we've lost over time, which at the end of the day makes quite a lot of sense in the context of, we talk about the Yuga cycle all the time. So if we were descending from the golden age of the Yuga cycle over thousands of years, perhaps we had technologies to do things like move stones this size that we just have no idea how to do now.
Yeah, and we've got dolmens all over the world, which appear to be like survival structures from meteorite storms or mega hail, or maybe
Mhm,
even plasma lightning storms or something.
mhm,
And maybe this type of construction here in Peru is also, for a similar purpose.
mhm.
Because back then they had this radical extreme weather that we're unaware of in the current moment.
Yeah.
Yep.
Um, I don't, it just occurred to me, I don't know a lot about the sort of geology of this part of South America where Sacsayhuaman is. Is it
Yeah.
prone to earthquakes still today?
Yeah, it's on a plate boundary,
Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah.
right? They have 7 and 8 magnitude earthquakes all the time.
I mean, it's interesting because it's really no different than what we're doing today. And we still have people living in earthquake prone zones, and we've just learned how to build buildings now that resist earthquakes better. But obviously, we've been doing this for a long time.
And they may have been harnessing Earth's energy in ways we don't know, this
Mhm,
lost ancient technology,
mhm.
because you would want to be on a plate boundary if you were harvesting telluric currents, because those are
Oh,
going to be
right.
flowing on faults
Mhm.
in the most. You'd also want to pick it based on the bedrock type for conductivity. So all these are interesting considerations.
Yeah.
It's just so fascinating that we know nothing at all about what we're looking at here in this picture.
No, we really know absolutely nothing. It's this, in the same way that we're just like barely just scratching the surface of putting together the pieces of hominid evolution, and all of the current theories that we have are they're only based on the the data and the evidence that we have, the skulls that we found, the little finger bones that have some amount of DNA left, all of that kind of stuff. But obviously we're constantly discovering new fossils, new artifacts, and which tells us we obviously don't have the whole picture, and not by a long shot.
It also
And I
exposed. Oh,
No, I was just gonna say I find it kind of ridiculous that we think we can have a whole theory about how we came to be the modern Homo sapiens we are today with while we're constantly discovering new evidence. I mean, that's kinda silly.
Yeah, and this discussion also exposes archaeology, modern archaeology, for what it is, a huge fraud.
Mhm.
This site is attributed to the Inca, I believe, and
Mm.
which is not even possible. All the Inca structures, they never used megalithic construction. They often built on top of it, though.
Right.
So,
Right.
and that's so obvious.
The
It's not even arguable.
the idea that the Inca built this, considering what we know they were building, is as ridiculous as it is to say that the Egyptians only had, copper and bronze tools.
Right.
They're doing incredibly precise things like, drilling perfectly round tunnels through rock, something that today we can only do with diamond blades. And we're claiming that they did that with copper tools? Like, what? I
You know,
mean,
this type of knowledge and construction may have been a result of living through magnetic excursions.
yeah.
There might be really weird weather, cosmic rays they're trying to escape from. So it's just interesting. We don't know anything about what we were 30,000 years ago. And modern archaeology says caveman ooga booga.
Well, right, and the obvious, more logical answer to that is contained in the evidence of that we occupied caves, let's say
Yep.
40,000 years ago, and right around
Painted
the time.
amazing artwork with
It's
celestial
absolutely
significance.
extraordinary and truly beautiful artwork. Like, I have a heart response when I see some of those the art that some of that cave artwork, because it's really beautiful.
Yeah.
And then it just so happens that in the same time period, we were in a magnetic excursion and Neanderthals disappeared. Like, obviously, there was a reason why we were in caves. Obviously, there was a reason why we were, there were people going into dolmens and things like that.
And there was a reason why there was earthquake proof megalithic construction like this,
Right.
which may date all the way back to then.
It may date way before then.
Yeah, based on weathering patterns, this could be tens of thousands of years old. This
Yeah.
this structure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating. That was a great show. Anything you want to say to follow up for the goodbye?
I'm really glad that, that Saxe-Woman still exists as it does, because to me, it's really a shining example of, things we were capable of a long time ago that, the official narrative says is impossible. But this is just irrefutable. And it's not like you can just like destroy this or like take it down, or I suppose you could, with a lot of effort, you could really bury it or something. But it's like, just even doing that would probably be difficult for us.
There's a guy on Twitter that's excavating here. I guess they allowed him to start digging at the base of this wall to see how
Mhm.
deep the wall goes.
Yeah.
He's down about 3 or 4 feet and the wall is still going.
Oh, so that'd be really interesting
And
to
the
see how
reason it's
far he
taking so
gets.
long is because they're doing archaeology correct. They're only taking an inch at a time and sifting it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like, why hasn't anybody done that a long time ago?
Why aren't they excavating all of Gobekli Tepe to find out who we actually are?
Right. Or like in the case of Saxe-Woman, I mean, you could certainly just use it like ground penetrating radar or something,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Like
It's all
that would be obviously relatively uninvasive and could tell us a lot. So why aren't we doing that?
I don't know. Leave a
You
comment below. Why aren't we doing that?
All right.
All right. Thank you, Rumblers. Hit the thumbs up. Do all those Rumble things. You guys are going to be watching the premiere tonight on Rumble, and we replay this on Wednesday over at Magnetic Reversal News on YouTube, because we care about free speech and we care about Rumble. Be safe. We love you.